ahead and get started with our projects. You should have your list of your items, and I'm going to just kind of briefly go over those. You should have some feathers. Whether they're our flying high or our flutters, it really doesn't matter for this project. You should have a packet of your gleaming leaves, and whether you have them in our sterling or the 24 karat, again, that's your choice. You should have a packet of Kara's Kisses. We're going to be using either Twinkle or Edelweiss for our projects. This is the Twinkle. You should have one package of those. You should have your 2 bracelets. For sure, you should have the Athena bracelet, and then another bracelet of your choice, whichever one you like, one of your favorites. We know it's hard to pick your favorite. You should have some Dazzle Line chain, a stem of the Spectacular Leaf. This is one of my favorites. It's absolutely beautiful. And then some acrylic design chain as well. Okay, now that everybody has their products and we're ready to start, let's look at the first project we're going to create. And this is the Athena armband. And this is all about signature corsages today. And what signature corsages are is it's taking your creativity up 2 or 3 notches. What we're here to do at Fitz Design is help you take what you've been doing and step it up a notch, and that's going to become your ordinary or your basic or your essential corsage and boutonniere items. But today's webinar, Signature Corsages, we're taking it even above that level because we encourage you to have at least, 3 or 4, 5, 10 samples, depending on your prom business, of some really over-the-top, beautiful, high-end, expensive corsages available for your prom girls to come in and take a look at. We all know, we hear it at every show we go to, if you don't show it, they don't know you can do it. And if they don't know you can do it, you're not going to sell it. And I always like to go a little bit step further with that, especially when it comes to prom, is that they actually have to see the product done up. It's beautiful to have books and magazines and selection guides. Those are all great tools that you have to have and are very helpful. But when it comes to the prom girls, the young generation is very hands-on. They like to see it. They want to know exactly what it's going to look like. And having the samples made up in advance, and so they can actually see how creative you can be with some of your beautiful flowers and Fitz Design products, that will even take them that step further of saying, okay, I want that high-end corsage. I want my corsage to be the biggest, the blingiest at the prom this year. So our first one, like I said, is on the Athena. And we'll get in closer to this, and as I'm making it, I kind of leave my mechanics and everything showing because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. But what makes this unique right out of the bank is that the Athena armband is made to be worn up high on the arm. It's a little bit larger in circumference so that it adjusts. And it does. If you have one of those really teeny tiny petite girls, you can move that so that it's smaller, depending on the size. Just it really bends very quite easily to adjust to whatever size arm the wearer has. But that alone starts to say, okay, I've got something a little different. I'm a little bit out there. I don't want the traditional wrist corsage. So this already makes it a little bit of a signature. And then what we do is we add more individual items. We really customize it to fit that girl's personality. We let her become part of the process. Necessarily get into with the more bulky wire cutters. Another thing I like to have available is the needle nose pliers. And in some cases, this is all you need because they have the little section in there that you can actually cut some wire with. So that's another additional tool I like to have on hand. And of course, you're going to have your floral adhesive. We recommend using the floral adhesive when you're creating your corsages and boutonnieres as your main form of mechanic. We've had a lot of questions come in about, can we use the U-glue dashes? And absolutely you can, but we find that the floral glue is really the best product, not only because it holds the best, but also because it helps the longevity of the flower. For those of you who've joined us before, you've heard me say this again, but you're going to probably hear us talk about it in every webinar that we do because it's so important, that the glue helps seal in that cut, which helps last the flower, make the flower last longer. It holds in the moisture. So that's another reason, another good reason why we like to use the glue. Okay, so we're starting off with our armband, and you can see it definitely has a top and a bottom. And for this particular way we're going to be wearing it, we want the flowers to be on the bottom section. So the cascade hangs off the bottom. And then when it is on the arm, depending on how you can actually divide it, and then you can still see the decorative part of the bracelet on top. If we were to flip it, you wouldn't see the bottom. So it's really important that you start out creating your corsage in the right direction. You notice with all our corsage items, they have the design disc on them, and then they also have that little ribbon rosette. First thing you'll want to do is remove the tape that secures that on there, and go ahead and unravel that ribbon rosette. This ribbon really has multiple features. One, obviously, is to hold the disc onto the bracelet. So we want to make sure it's on there secure, kind of wiggle it around, and go ahead and pull those to make sure those knots are nice and tight and secure. And if by chance you get one that's a little loose, go ahead and tie that knot a little tighter, because it's really important that your mechanics are good. So you want that to stay in place and not wobble around. And it just takes that little extra second to make sure those knots are tight so that that doesn't happen. Okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create our bow. And for the one we had some streamers. So however you make your bows, there's really no right or wrong way as long as you achieve what you're going for. You've got some loops and some tails. And really what we're doing with this one is the bow becomes a sort of a mechanic to help hold the Gerber daisy. So you want some that has a little bit of a fluffier, longer bow to it, the little loops on the bow. Add a couple more streamers. And I'll just take another little piece because I want some more streamers. So I'm going to use my mechanic as my streamer. Little piece here, and I'm going to use that to tie off my bow. Over the years, I've pretty much eliminated using wire to tie my bows for a couple reasons. One, I like to use a lot of streamers and to add into it, so I actually count that streamer as a loop. If I'm counting out my yardage, it's actually figured right into it. And then it's a decorative way. It's not something I have to try to worry about hiding or covering up. And then it also allows me, when you can tie that really tight, you can still adjust the loops slightly. It gives me some flexibility, just in case once I get it onto my corsage, I have a little heavier loop on one side or a longer loop. I can pull that loop through and adjust slightly the shape and the size of the bow for my corsage. So then I'm going to go ahead and use these streamers, because again, I want to use as much of the mechanic that's already provided for me. Make sure I've got it going the right way so that when I put it on, my streamers are going down. And I'm going to go ahead and just tie that right on. Bring it up through and tie it on. Making sure that it's nice and secure and nice and tight. Now, in some cases, these streamers can be left on, and you can add them in as decorative. You can maybe glue some little medallions or rhinestones to them, and they become a decorative part of your corsage, your bow. You can also leave them on some of our corsages. When you have those teeny tiny petite girls and you're concerned that the bracelet might slip around her wrist, you can use these as an additional way to secure the bracelet around her wrist. She just would put them around her wrist and you would tie them as another way to secure the bracelet in place so that it doesn't maybe move back and forth on those really teeny tiny petite prom girls. In my case, I don't need them, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut them right off. Move them out of the way. So here we are. We have our streamers hanging down. We have our bow. Next thing I want to do is I want to get some glue on this because we're going to start adding some embellishment. So I find it's easier because for those of you who work with glue, you know that glue to glue is the best form of adhesion that works the best. So I'm going to go ahead and all around on my design disc, I'm going to put a thin layer of the glue. And it's okay if the bow gets into it a little bit. It'll just help hold the ribbon and streamers in place. I just want to make sure it's all the way around. You can see here, it's not overly heavy, the amount. I just have a nice thin coating around the entire disc. And I'm just going to set that aside for a second because I'm going to actually prepare my chain. Remember in this one, we had the streamers, the chain streamers that hung down. And I kind of want to start from the base of the corsage and move up. I want to start at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and cut off my chain, get it to whatever lengths I want them to be in. Remember, this is being worn higher up on the arm. So if you want it real dramatic, you add, longer streamers to it. Whatever you want to do. I've got my 3. And then the one end, I want to just make sure that I have the little string cut off, the little string that holds the medallions together. Just want to make sure I've got a nice clean edge. You can kind of see there's little tiny strings right here that I want to clean off. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a little bit of glue to my medallions, just the very first medallion. You can kind of see. I haven't covered it real solid, but there is a nice coating on the entire medallion. I'm going to set that aside. Take my other string here. And part of this production is what makes being able to create these one-of-a-kind designs profitable. When you design, if I were to put glue on this, put my glue down, insert that, and come back and do every little insertion, those little 1-2 second pauses take time, and that really eats away at your productivity, which we all know eats away at your profits. So preparing things in advance, it allows me to move quicker in my production, but it also allows that glue to get just a little bit tacky. And when it's a little bit tacky, it holds better. It sticks quicker into the finished corsage. So, and that's what we want. A lot of people who struggle with the glue, it's because when they insert something in, it doesn't stick automatically. Well, by me putting that glue on the corsage, the design disc and the corsage and setting that aside and then coming back and doing the same thing with my chain, it gave me those few important seconds to get that glue just a little tacky, so you can see how that's sticking right in there without a problem. And they're in that corsage now. And they're staying there. They're not coming out. They're not sliding out. And it's tacky enough that if I want, I can come in and I can just adjust where that chain is going because I want it to come straight down. And there we have our chain added in.
Hey, Susie, we have a question.
Yes.
When you're tying the bow to the disc, do you ever add glue first to the disc for added stability?
In some cases, I do glue first, but I'm clumsy. And so when I have done that, I've gotten too much glue onto the ribbon. So it just works better for me to come in after and put the glue in after I put the corsage in, or the bow into the corsage. So it works. If it works well for you and you're not quite as messy and clumsy as I am, then certainly. And what that will do is it allows you to put a little teeny tiny bit of glue over the ribbon rosette where you've tied that knot. So that works as well. A good question. Okay. So now that we have that, it's time for us to go ahead and we want to cover up some of our mechanics. We don't necessarily want to see the disc. So we're going to come in with some corsage leaves. And you can do this with the silk corsage leaves like I'm using here, or you could also use some Italian ruscus or maybe some pittosporum leaves. Really, it's up to you. I'm going to go ahead again. I'm prepping everything. I'm going to put probably 4 of them around the base. And I don't need the stems on for the design I'm creating, so I'm going to go ahead and remove all the stems first, come back in, put my glue, all of them at once. You can see the amount of glue I'm putting on there. I'm putting it about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch up onto the leaf. Now I can go back and grab the first one that I had glue on, and I can start adding those into my corsage. I'm just going to peel ribbon. Some of it's already starting to stick into the glue, but that's okay. I can just come right back in and stick that right on there and just go around and just cover up some of the places where I can see my disc. It's okay if I put them over medallions. That's fine too. Now that I have them in, they are nice and secure. I'm going to come in with my Gerber daisy. This is a time where we want to add our flower. And the Gerber daisies are a fun flower to use, especially for prom, because of the colors, the exciting colors that they're available in. And honestly, we've had some people say, are Gerbers really, do they hold up well enough? You know, I find that if you get in good quality product, you put it through the proper care and handling chain, and you harden them off, they certainly do hold up nicely for a prom. And you can usually start creating your Gerber pieces probably on Thursday afternoon and Friday for your prom, and they'll hold up just nicely. Go ahead, and we're going to, as you can tell, I'm using permanent botanicals for my corsages. And I'm doing that for a couple reasons. One, I'm not in a flower shop right now, so I don't have access to a cooler full of beautiful flowers. But another reason I'm doing that is because as I go through this webinar series, I am creating my samples that I'm going to put in my prom bling buffet. And these are the samples that are going to show all those prom girls and guys who come in just what fantastic fun things I'm able to create. So it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm not wasting money. I'm not wasting my flowers that I don't have, that I have to go out and buy just for this webinar. If you have a flower shop and you have a cooler full, then certainly feel free to follow along with fresh flowers.
Susie, we have a question.
Oh, yeah?
If you let the glue set before adding, will it cut down on getting stringy glue pieces off of the items?
Yes and no. One of the things that creates the string is the tack between 2 types of glue. When you have glue on the one side and glue on the other, and that creates the glue. Now, the question is it comes out of here? Is that going to eliminate it? No, because that depends on your control of your glue. But the strings that happen once it's glued and put into the corsage, that it's only going to help it if you control the amount of glue you use. And I know that's kind of a scapegoat answer, but it really comes down to learning how to control the amount of glue that comes out of your tube and onto your flower. That's going to help eliminate the messy strings or the runoff that you get. One thing I like to tell people is never, ever squeeze your glue tube from the center. And I know we all have a tendency to hold it like this and squeeze from there. But what that does is we waste a lot of the glue that's down here, and we create an uneven flow that comes out of the nozzle. Hold your glue and squeeze it very slightly from the end. And when you do, you tip your glue up, and for the most part, especially when you just open your glue tube, you're using gravity to let the glue come out of the tube as opposed to forcing it out by pushing on the tube. And that allows you to control the amount that you get on your flower. Therefore, once you have that, it controls the amount of mess and strings that you have later on. But a lot of this are moving the flowers around too much on here, and then you get it stringy. It's kind of like, how many of us have made cobwebs out of pan glue and some styrofoam or something, and we stick it in and attach it, and then we make the strings? It's the same thing that's happening here. So now that I've got some glue on here, I want to insert it in. And I'm going to remove it just for a second, because as you can see, when I removed it, I left a little bit of residue here on my bow. Glue to glue adhesion is the strongest, and we want that glue to glue tack. And as you can see now, that Gerber daisy is secure into my corsage. Just allowing that to come a little tacky and to have glue to glue, it made it stick, so I don't have it falling out right away. It's in place right where I want it, and I don't have to worry about, as I continue on with my corsage, that's going to fall out. Okay, so now we have the leaves, we have the Gerber, we have some ribbon, we have our chain. Now let's add some feathers to our corsage. And this is a signature corsage, so we're going to go over the top on this one, and I'm going to add all three of my hot pink corsage. Quite oftenly, if I'm working on maybe a smaller budget or something a little more conservative, I might pull one of the feathers out for the boutonniere and the other feather out for the additional accessory that I'm going to sell my prom girl. But in this case, she has no budget, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add all three of them in. And you'll notice on our feathers, they have one little area here. You can tell this is the binding point. This is where it's been taped. I try, whenever possible, not to cut up into that, because sometimes the paper unravels a little bit too much when you cut up into that fleshy part. So I usually cut just below that. Add my glue. And if I do, if you can see if that little string is coming out, I'll go ahead and wrap my glue around that so that it sticks nicely, so it's not going to come unraveled. And actually, I'm going to just set that aside here because I want that to get just a little tacky, and I'm going to go on to my next one. Add some glue to that. And my last one, add some glue to that. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start adding those in. And again, every once in a while, I check myself so I remember what's the top and what's the bottom. Behind the Gerber daisy, my feather. And I'm going to stick it in there, and I'm going to pull it out just for a second, again like I did with my Gerber daisy, making sure I've got that glue-to-glue bond, and then I'm going to push it back in where I want it to be, where I want it to be positioned. Take my second one, do the same thing, come out with it a little bit, and stick it right in there. Go in there with my fingers, and I'll push down on them. So I have two of my flutters coming out of the top, and I'm going to have one just kind of coming off to the side and down. Stick it in, pull it out, and stick it back in. Again, just go back in there real quick to make sure that it's nice and secure in there. Don't want it falling out. So now, if I want, I could have done this before. Okay, but then once you get them in there, you realize, oh, they're a little bit too long. So you have a couple options. I'm going to move the rhinestones. I'm going to position them. And I like to position them so that the gem is facing up where it can be seen. Just like a flower, we always face the flower face to where it's pointing to the focal point and where it can be seen. We want to do the same thing with the gems. But these are still a little bit long. So I'm going to actually take my florist knife, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to hold on to them and I'm going to curl them. Reflex them ever so slightly. You don't want to do this with your knife open because obviously you'll cut the feathers. But that just kind of gives them a softer curve to them. You can also do that with your scissors, anything that's going to kind of run along that spine. And that way they're not quite sticking out straight. We've got a soft curve to them that will help them bring the eye back into the focal point of your corsage. I'm going to go back over on this other side while I'm thinking about it and go ahead and adjust my gems here too. You want to get the maximum use out of all those. You want them to sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. Okay. The next thing we want to add in is our gleaming leaves. So I'm going to take a second, clear off my space. One, because I like a neat work area to work in so I can see what I have. And two, so that you can see what I'm doing. But here we have our gleaming leaves. And what's fun about the gleaming leaves is that they come 12 in a pack. 6 of them have these beautiful little rhinestone detail to them. And the other 6 are plain. So the ones that have the rhinestone, we definitely want them to be seen. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to start cutting them to the length I want them to be. I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and I'm going to just create a little tiny loop at the end of that. And the reason I do that is the floral adhesive, the glue on metal is not porous, so it doesn't have the gripping power immediately that it does on, say, a fresh flower or a ribbon or something that it does have rough or porous surface. These are very, very shiny, very metallic, and so the glue has a tendency to take a little bit longer to dry or to get tacky. And just putting a little bit of glue on that very narrow stem really doesn't provide me with as much glue as I want to be sure that my leaves and whatever it is I'm using are going to stay securely in there. So when I create that little loop on the end, it allows me to pool that glue and gives me a little like a drop there that really will help hold this securely into my corsage. So now we have this, and again, I'm going to double check what's my top and what's my bottom. I'm going to come in and I'm actually going to split the leaves of the Gerber daisy apart, and I'm going to stick this into the actual blossom. Pull it out for a second, push it right back to where I want it to be. So that way we're getting layers. Not everything is flat on the base and not everything is above here. We're getting layers to our work, and layers add motion, they add texture, and they help direct the eye to the focal point. But I'm using the ones with the gems because these are the ones that are going to be most noticed. Continue to do that. And this is the one case, because I'm doing something kind of custom and not so production-like I did with the feathers or putting in the silk leaves, I'm going to do these one at a time. So that way I'm cutting them at the right length immediately when I need them. So I don't have to take it back out, recut it, reglue it, and put it back in. So this is one of those instances where doing onesies as opposed to multiple at a time actually works in your favor. Come back in.
Hey, Susie?
Yes.
They want to know Gerbers. According to them, they seem to fall apart a little bit easier.
If they what? You broke out there. If they can...
They want to know if we can use fresh Gerbers, because the fresh Gerbers tend to fall apart a little bit easier. So they're wondering if they can use fresh Gerbers for this arrangement.
Yeah, absolutely you can. I had mentioned just a little earlier that Gerbers are actually a quite hardy flower as long as they have been processed properly. You can't use Gerbers that are 2 or 3 weeks old. You need to get them in maybe like on Friday or Saturday, the week before your prom. Make sure they are in good, excellent condition when you get them in. If you're receiving in not top of the line product, you may have more concerns with them not holding up. But if they're in good condition when you get them, and then make sure you process them properly using the preservative and in any kind of hydrating solution that you prefer, that you have tested and you like in your shop. Make sure you put them through all that whole course of chain of life of production there with your processing. You get them into a preservative. Harden them off in your cooler at least overnight. You don't want to ever pull something off the truck or out of a box, cut it, slam it into a vase, and think you can use it. You have to process your flowers properly, and you have to let them harden off before you can use them in your corsage work. Then when you do, if you're going to do several corsages using your Gerber daisies, don't pull out 3 buckets of Gerber daisies and have them sitting next to you all day long. Pull out a vase of all the red ones that you need for all the red Gerber daisy corsages you have ordered. So that way you're only pulling out a few at a time and using them, and that way they stay as fresh as condition as possible. Using the glue, again, to cover that cut that's on the back of the stem, you need to make sure that you fully go over that cut that's on the back. That helps seals in the moisture. So you're using the best, freshest product that you have treated properly, you've hardened off properly, you've taken precautions by using that, and then when you're done, you're going to add your favorite anti-transpirant. There are several on the market that are great. You know which one you like best. If you've never used one, check out a couple of them. I encourage you to test them and make sure you spray that with an anti-transpirant, a sealant of some sort once it's finished, and then back into the cooler it goes to wait for your prom girl to pick it up. You should have no problem whatsoever if you're using good quality, well taken care of with the proper chain of life. You should be good to go with your Gerber daisies.
Susie got another design question on the gerbs. If you're using fresh gerbs that only have one layer of petals,
yep,
where are you attaching the leaves? Is that going onto the disc or the back of the flower?
You can put it, it actually goes, and let me show you here. You can kind of pull this apart and get into the nitty gritty. You can see there's a layer here where the ribbon is. It actually goes behind the gerb. You can actually put it into the calyx there of the gerb if you want to. But most gerbs, even if they have just that one single layer, the layers are not perfect. The petals are not perfectly in a row. So there's some variation to it. So you can find that you can stick it towards the back into the calyx. You can stick it into the ribbon and still achieve that look that we're doing here with a multi-layer Gerber daisy. So I'm just going to keep going now with my... I had one and I just put it aside. What did I do with it? Oh, there it is. Again, this is what's important. As long as you have that little stem on there, that little end, you want to make sure you go ahead and fold it over to give you that little teeny tiny well. Get your glue on there. Stick it in. As you can see, what I'm doing is I'm kind of creating a spiral. That's directing the eye. Now this, here's another little trick. I'm going to leave a little bit of the stem on. Just a little bit of the stem I'm going to leave on there. The reason I'm going to do that is because I want to stick that. I'm going to use that as part of my mechanic to actually stick right down into the flower, just like you would a regular pin. For those that come onto the top, you can stick it right into that center. So sometimes it's good to have that extra little pin on there. I'm adding a little bit extra glue to it just because I want to make sure it's going to stick in there and hold. And it sticks in there. So a lot of times we'll use the accessories and we just put them off to the flower, and we don't accessorize the blossom itself. And the Gerber daisy is a perfect flower that just says, you know, make me shine, make me bling. And you can do that with a lot of our different products here. So I have 6 of my leaves left. And again, if I were making 3 pieces, I may want to pull some of these aside to make my boutonniere and my 3rd piece to go with this. But this girl, she wants it all in her corsage, so we're just going to give it all to her. We're going to go ahead and come back to our chains. And we're going to embellish our chains a little bit. This is the time if you want to make sure that they're either all the same length, or maybe you want one to be a little bit shorter. However you want to do that, this is the time to go ahead and what I'm going to do on these, actually I'm just going to take them off because on this particular laser leaf, it's actually pretty on both sides. So I went ahead and just stripped the back off because I want it to be pretty on both sides. I'm going to add just a little glue right onto the medallion on each of my chains. And I'm going to come back with my leaves and do the same thing, add a little bit of glue. About the size, same circumference approximately as that medallion is where I'm adding the glue onto this back of the leaf. It's kind of hard to see probably because of the reflection, but I'm taking my cue from the size of the medallion as to how much glue I want to add to it. A lot of times the question comes up, you know, how much glue is the right amount of glue? And that really depends on each item you're using, the size of, or weight of the flower, the area in which you need to attach something to. But I always like to say about a size medium. A small is too little, large is too much, and will get messy, and medium is usually just right in any application. Now that medium will change. Medium for what? That you have to depend on what your size of your flower and what you need to glue. So, but just always be aware of what you're gluing and what you need to have done, and then you'll always have the right amount of glue. So I've got glue to glue, and both of them are slightly tacky, so they're sticking very nicely. Just go back and give them a nice little press. And then I want to add a little bit more bling to those, because it's never done till it's overdone. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut off my gleaming leaves, 3 of those. I'm going to put a little glue. A little glue on the leaf. Set this aside here. A little bit of glue, set it aside. A little bit of glue. When you finally start getting those clumps of glue on the end of your Sometimes they can work to your advantage, and you can take the clump of glue right off of it and use that to your advantage. So I'm going to come back and attach my leaves right over the top. I can always come back in and wipe off any excess that I see on there that I don't want, because now they're stuck on there. And I have a few more leaves that I want to add. I'm going to come back and I'm going to, again, cut them off. A dollop of glue. I'm going to add these to my ribbons. I'm going to add them right onto the ribbon, and I'm not going to put them on going straight. I want them to kind of be seen, so I'm going to just put them all off at a slight angle. Go ahead, put it on there, tap it down. That will also help weight down the ribbons. Okay. Tap it down, tap it down, tap it down. And now we have our finished corsage. For the fun and whimsical girl, the bright colors are great, and the Gerber daisies are the perfect flower to use for those fun-loving girls who are daring with their colors and daring with their style. So don't be afraid to try to use the Gerber daisies. They make great corsages, especially when you're dealing with the signature corsages where people want to really focus on the color and focus on the wow of what the finished corsage of all the accessories and flowers can be.
Susie, got a question here.
Yes.
Since on these, we're purposely making signature corsages, we're purposely making big, fancy, expensive corsages, would you use your same pricing formula, or would you want to use a different type of formula because you're creating something more fancier and more expensive on purpose?
Well, that's a really good question. And honestly, if you have a good pricing structure already in place where you know the cost of your flowers and you know the cost of your accessories and you already have a good structure, and we actually have a chart, an actual pricing guide that helps you if you want to do some pre-pricing. So once you have that, it becomes a labor issue. And in some instances, I would say, yes, you need to charge a little bit more for your labor. But honestly, once you get the hang of these, your labor is the same as it is on this type of corsage. It's just a few more insertions. And really, once you become really skilled at the gluing techniques and you become familiar with the products you're using, you will discover ways to cut your production and your labor in half. And it really doesn't become more of a labor-intensive project. For those of you who have joined us for the past webinars, that one didn't take really any longer than the rest of them that were not the signature corsages. Really, where your price and where you want to excel is you want to be able to sell all those add-on things. The money is going to come in through the additional sales. Think of it this way. For Valentine's Day, we always try to sell an additional balloon. We try to sell a plush and a box of candy. Are you charging extra labor to add those to the vase of roses you're sending out the door? Not necessarily. Now, granted, you're saying, but Susie, I actually have to insert the leaf into the corsage, so that is labor. But as long as you have a well-structured labor cost already, you know what your percentage is, whether it's 20%, 25%, 30%, 35%, that depends on what you need to cover for your cost of labor? I can't answer that for you. You need to do the research and do the math to come up with what your labor charge should be. And as long as that is covering all your costs, it doesn't matter if you're adding 2 or 3 more pieces into it. It's the difference between a vase with a dozen roses or a vase of mixed flowers. There's going to be more insertions into the vase of mixed flowers than it is to the vase of 12 roses. You don't normally charge additional labor for that. So you don't necessarily have to charge additional labor unless for some reason you know you are creating something so from scratch that it is going to take you and a really large additional amount of time. But I don't recommend charging more for labor. I know that was a long way to answer that question, but I think you needed to know the basis why I don't think that. It's because really once you get the hang of it and once you start, you're going to increase your sales through selling more items than you need to by charging more labor. So
Great.
That question.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, second project. If you want to take a second, if there's no other further questions, we'll clear out our space here. We all have to do that. Another tip I like to share is I take a large cookie sheet and I will put down a towel that is moist, and that's what I work off of when I design, because I find that when I can lay my flowers down on it and it keeps the flowers moist. And then if I have to put something away real quick, I can just actually take that tray and move it right into the cooler and not have to move my stuff. Okay, here's our second signature corsage. This one definitely has a lot more bling to it. And just like with everything, you're going to have different levels of signature corsages. And on your samples, we really encourage you to come up with some really creative and fun names that you want to call your signature samples. And that really grabs the girls' attention. I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of out of the loop, so I'm not sure who the hip girls are, whether it's Katy Perry or Beyonce or whoever it is. Tag some names to some of your pieces, your signature corsages that are identifiable to this generation. And that, we all have this, I want to be like them, or I want to wear what they're wearing, and I want to accessorize like they're accessorizing. If you've got a fun, fancy name to your corsages, then chances are they're gonna be gravitating to that particular item because they kind of want to emulate and be like their favorite celebrities. So this one's using love is the Beverly Hills cuff bracelet that actually opens up, but you'll have whatever favorite one you selected. So we'll just go ahead and get started on our next project. Moving on down. I have all my goodies here for us. Okay, for my sample, again, I'm using the silk flowers because I'm creating my display that I'm going to start to put up. And for those of you who joined us last week, we talked about, wowing your store and getting displays and how important it is to make your shop look like something that the teenage girls can relate to. That's just so important that when they walk into your stores, that they say, hey, yeah, I would like to buy something from them. They get where I'm coming from. They understand my likes and dislikes. So I trust their judgment and what they can do. So having some of those samples, and fresh samples you'd have to redo them every week. So I really encourage you to consider making up some permanent botanical samples that you can use in your displays. So this bracelet here has our new disc clip on it. It's a great improvement to our corsage line because we do find that there are still some times when the traditional clip can be used, and we also know that there's still a lot of people who are being asked to wire and tape their corsages. And when we just had the disc on there, people were a little confused as to what to do with it and how do I attach the corsage, if it's wired and taped, to the disc. Well, it is actually easily, because you can do that with that ribbon rosette. That's another reason why we have that ribbon rosette on there, and not just to attach the bracelet to the disc, but to actually secure a wired and taped corsage to the disc. But we had a lot of people asking us, a lot of people questioning us about how do I do that? Why isn't that there? So we've added it to all our corsages. We'll soon be having the disc clip on there. But in this case, we're still going to be our gluing. That's what we prefer to do. So it makes it real easy. You just go ahead and bend over the little flags, the little flaps here. Push them down nice and secure. At this point, if you want to, you can use some stemming tape, some floral corsage tape to go ahead and wrap around that if you're afraid that maybe the ends are too sharp. But I can tell you right now, I'm running my finger across that. There's no rough edges or there's no sharp edges. The girl's not going to be poked by leaving it that way. But certainly, you can feel free to go ahead and cover that up. But for the purpose of today, I'm not going to cover that up. So you can see that it can be used either way. You can even wrap it with ribbon if you prefer, whatever your choice is. So we start this the same way we started the other one, by making sure our mechanics are secured to the bracelet. Just unravel that. Just take it and make sure. In some cases when it's not, just undo your little knots and retie it on there. We're going to go ahead and make our bow. How many loops is really up to you. Some people like to see a lot of ribbon in there. Other people prefer just ribbon as a mechanic or a slight accent. So it's really up to you how many loops or how prominent you make that ribbon. My only suggestion is if you have something as pretty as this chevron ribbon here, don't use it unless it's going to actually be part of the visual, the focal point, the actual style of your corsage. If you just want it to be a mechanic and you don't care really that it's seen, then just use a simpler basic sheer or satin ribbon to just bring in the color. But if you want it to be part of it, especially when you're using something so beautiful as this, definitely, make sure you see it and incorporate it in as part of the style of your corsage. So I want a couple loops here, a few streamers. This is tied on. One thing I went ahead and I didn't even follow my own rules is I didn't glue this first. So even the instructor makes mistakes, but we can go ahead and do that now. And that's what one of the questions was. Can I do that before? And absolutely, you can do that before. And see what it does then is it allows you to get right over those the little knots there to make sure they're not going to come loose. Now we can add it and tie it on. So now you've seen both. I just am more clumsy this way. Okay. And there we go. Next thing I want to do is I want to take my dazzle line chain. We're going to attach that the same way that we attached the acrylic chain in the last corsage. I'm just going to kind of measure out what I want. Do I want them to be very precise? In this particular corsage that I created, they're just random. They're just really there for some glitz and glitter to show movement and sparkle when she's dancing and she's walking. So I don't really have to be overly worried about, the how long is one, how long is the other. I'm going to go ahead and use the whole thing in this one corsage. However many strands you want to cut. I just want to make sure that they're long enough to be seen. So I have 4. Go ahead and add some glue just to the top two little gems of my rhinestones here. Another little thing, our little packaging, the black packaging that comes in a lot of our products is like a thick kind of a coated plastic. Those are a great thing to set down on your table when you're designing, in case you don't want to get your table all full of glue. And go ahead and just put it on that, because then it's disposable and you can throw it away after. And even because they're shiny, it kind of like the glue doesn't stick real hard to that real quick. So it gives you a little bit of time to, a little bit of glue. I have more glues on my fingers this time than I do on that. All right, a couple little more places of glue here. Put that aside, come back to the first one I started with. I'm going to pull up my ribbon again and add that right to it, right on top here. I want to spread them out enough so that when they do dangle, they each have their own space and they don't get tangled up with each other. Just press them down. You can see that they already stick. It's that letting that glue tack up that little bit that really helps you save time. I know it says, well, you got to wait a second or two to do that. But if you're doing the production, like I explained earlier, that really, you're always in motion. You're continually doing something. So it's not really wasting time. And it makes everything stick right away. So you don't have to go back and try to reposition something after it's already, unstuck. This one I want to come over the top here. So I've got all my streamers. Another thing we like to recommend is that when you're making your corsage, think about it, how the girl's going to wear it. And if you're going to have anything that cascades down the front or protrude too far down off the front, that you make sure that it's coming off the front of the wrist and not towards her dress where it could get snagged or caught onto something. Okay. We do have a few, again, I'm using the silk corsage leaves, but you could certainly use some fresh foliage of your choice, whatever you like to use. I'm just snipping off the ends because I don't need the ends. Putting my glue on them. And I don't have, shame on me, because I'd like to show you, and I think I'll take the second to show you. We all get those globs on there, and it makes it hard for us to manage the amount of glue that we're getting. And even though sometimes they're to our advantage where we can put a little something in there, we need to get that off there because it's impeding my ability to actually, so excuse the crumpling here, but another use of our packaging, we don't like to throw anything away. The cellophane is perfect for cleaning off your nozzle. And every once in a while, you're just going to have to stop, take the time to do that. And you can see it. There's hardly any dent marks in this tube. So if you're squeezing from the middle, this tube would have been just annihilated by now. But by squeezing from the end and keeping your tube clean, you're going to work more efficiently and you're going to have a better experience, especially if you're just learning how to glue. Okay, so now that we've got those and they're a little bit tacky, and come back and I'm going to just go ahead and put those around. I'm trying to cover up my mechanics, any spot where there's a really big bare place where I can see my disc. I'm also looking at how they're laying I mean, they have to have some sort of following a line. There still has to be elements and principles when you're creating a corsage. It isn't all just a mass little mound and stick things in. You still have to create a visual path that your eye flows through the corsage and a focal point. So you've got to be mindful where you're placing everything you're putting in there so that you're minding your elements and principles of design. That's what sets the corsages from just an ordinary everyday corsage to you coming on top of your competition, is really paying attention to all those little details. And the more you do it, they become second nature, and you just have that instinct to know where things go. So now we're going to come in and add some of our blossoms. I'm using Dendrobium orchids. Again, these are the permanent botanicals, but they give you the same. You can see I'm coming in, and if that were the cut, I'm covering that cut. And I'm covering all a little bit around on the petals. I'm going to set that down. I'm going to do the next one. Got one more. And I also have some smaller orchids here. I'm actually just going to put one of them up inside the corsage, and the rest of them are actually going to cascade from the corsage. Got them all prepared. Turn over, there we go. Come back in. Now I'm going to determine my placement. So I want one here. I'm going to stick that into the corsage where I want it to rest. Pull it out because that adds that little dab of blue in there, and then reinsert it. Push it in, hold it. On to the next one. I'm going to stick it in there, pull it out, push it back. Because it's tacky, they're staying nice and secure for me. It's not wearable yet. It's not something that you're going to, if I started throwing this and jiggling this around, they might fall out. But when you're holding it and you're creating it, or you have them, a lot of people will put them several on a bar in front of them, it's going to hold it in there in place and allow you to move on to your next placement. My last one, stick it in there, pull it out. And keep in mind when you're building a corsage that it's also going to be seen when it's on the wrist. How is it going to look to her when she's wearing it, and how is it going to look to the people who are viewing her, who are looking at her? So you want to make sure that you're covering and getting something pretty all the way around. I've got one little one here. I'm going to bring in just for a pop of color down in the front. Pull it out, put it back in, and it stays. Okay. Next thing we can do is we're going to add some of our blossoms to our ribbon. And in order to do that, we leave just a little bit of the stem on there, just a tiny little bit. Actually, that's a little bit too much. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our glue down that entire little stem and a little dollop right on the back of the orchid. I'm going to take our glue and also add just a little tiny bit of it to the end of the ribbon. We're going to lay that orchid right on the ribbon and then fold the ribbon up over to cover up that stem. And just hold it there for a few seconds to let the glue form the bond. Of course, it's not working now because it never does when you want it, but it did last night, and it does every other time. There we go. Add another little blossom to this other one. Get my glue on my stem, cover up that cut so it helps retain the moisture. Makes the flowers last longer, allows you to start your production a little bit earlier. Those are all good things that help you with your bottom line. And it's, you know, it's important to know how to create beautiful things, but it's also important to know how to sell and to make money with those beautiful things. And if you know Fitz Design, you know we're committed to not only just showing you all the beautiful products, but teaching you how to make them and teaching you how to sell them. We still have some more things because this girl, she just is going all out. Now it's time to add in our spectacular leaf. And a lot of times people are intimidated by something like this because they're, you know, it is a little bit on the higher end of the budget, but it's beautiful and it just isn't one piece. If you look at it and you start deconstructing it, you can cut this up in many different ways. You can just cut maybe the single leaf here and then have a double here. I mean, there's so many different applications for it that it will really spread if you want it to, or you can use it whole in a bridal bouquet. Just don't take something for face value. Look at it and try to come up with fun and different ways that you can spread your dollar and allow yourself to have some fun and use some of these things and offer this kind of stuff. So I'm going to start. I'm going to cut off the full stem. And I'm going to come back here. I'm just kind of looking at it and seeing, okay, I can cut it there. So now I have that piece. And let's see. I think I will cut it right here. So I have now 3 different pieces that I can insert into my corsage. And again, I'm going to come back using my needle nose pliers, and I'm going to make that little loop on the end so that I have my glue. Get that glue on there. Pick up my corsage, determine where I'm going to put it, stick it in, pull it out, put it back in. Just kind of get my finger in there and push down on it so that I know that it's got glue to glue, that it's in there. And you can see that these are pretty heavy, and you can see that one insertion, it's already sticking in there nicely. Straighten this out just a little. Maybe I can trim a little more off of this and then make my loop. That's why on some of these little custom inserts, it's better to do them one at a time, like I mentioned before, than trying to do them all at once, because I have found with myself, I get a little overambitious and then I'm not mindful of where exactly I want it to go, and I cut it before I've determined that, and then I have to go back and recut it. So pull it back out, push it back in, push, and it's attached. We've got one more of those to go in here. And actually, I'm going to take that whole stem off because I'm going to put my glue right back onto the back. It's a nice round little section. Allows me to put a good amount of glue on there to hold that in. This one's actually going to come up inside the corsage instead of around the bottom. You can see where we're building. We have 3 last little things. Right here we have the Edelweiss, the Kara's Kisses. Whatever your favorite ones are, just add a little more bling to it. I'm going to cut off those stems. Be careful when you're cutting those stems off. They become little missiles, and you don't want to harpoon anybody in your working across from you. Got that little round thing. Got a glue. I'm going to insert it in. I'm going to pull it out, insert it back in. Now, when you're adding some of those little touches, it's okay to add some down in for depth, but make sure if they're going down in that they're in a very highly visible place. This is money. They've paid for that. They want to see it. So it's best to have these to come above the level of your flowers or at the level of your flowers. And if you're going to use them tucked in, use them tucked in into a focal area where you can actually see them. And I'll show you that on this one here. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the whole stem. So I have no stem left. I'm going to put my glue on it. There we go. And I'm going to attach it right to the petal of the Dendrobium orchid. And that's how you add it down in. You can still see it. It becomes part of the focal point, but you're not covering it up. If they're paying for it, they want to see it. And we know that they start looking at these corsages, and they know if they've picked out 3 of these, they want to be able to see all 3 of them in their corsage when they come to pick it up that day. And there you have it. Signature corsage with lots of bling, lots of dazzle, some beautiful, nice foliages with our sterling foliages and the spectacular leaf spray, a beautiful ribbon. I think any prom girl would love to walk away with that as her signature corsage. Do we have any questions on that? Okay, well, that either means that you're very shy or that I'm explaining everything really well. So let's hope it's the latter of the two. Got a few other samples I'd like to show you before we move on to the marketing section here. Here we have the Macy bracelet, very delicate, kind of a filigree lace look to it. And we've created kind of a nest, a little feathered nest. This is something different. This isn't really a ton of product, but it's a good use of particular selected product. We have one of our white feathered nests, which comes with the little rhinestones already in it. And then that is just simply attached to the underside. You can see it's attached here right to the disc with some of the glue. Now, sometimes people will say, well, we don't want to see that. Well, just take a little bit of ribbon or take some of our amazing wraps in the color to accent your corsage and go ahead and glue that right over that base. I didn't on this side because I wanted you to actually see it. I wanted you to be able to see the mechanic, but that's how you could finish off that back nicely. And then within the nest, we just put a few little blossoms. Here, they're a spray rose and a ranunculus. I added some of the single spectacular leaves that we also have, just a few of those, and then added one of our wings butterflies to have a lot of movement. It's the uniqueness, is using the products in different ways that also can create signature corsages. It doesn't necessarily mean throwing a lot of materials into it and just the more you put into it, the better. It's just taking your select product and manipulating it and changing it into something that's unexpected or not expected from the prom girl. Another one we have, kind of building on that here, we have some of our feathers again. And this one is actually using our cobblestone bracelet. And then we've added some of the really popular, the aluminum wire. I do get a lot of questions, well, I like to do the wire corsages. I like to do those. Well, this shows you that the two products come together very nicely. You can add in your wire accents and still create a signature corsage with one of our bracelets and some of our other accessories. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We can all work together and create something really creative. But I thought this was fun. I've added the twinkle, I believe it is, of the Kara's Kisses on the ends, on the little curly cues of each of my little aluminum wire curly cues. Added some of the flutters. Actually, this is only one stem of flutters, but it really has a high impact because of the color. And then some real simple daisies. To finish it off, we've added just 2 stems of the sterling rose leaves, and you have a corsage that's really going to say, wow, look at me. For someone who's a little fancier, we've got our block party bracelet. This is beautiful. It kind of looks like sapphire, emerald cut sapphires and crystals. It's kind of a bangle. It's the two bracelets, which are really popular right now, the stacking and the more bracelets as opposed to just one. And then again, I've used the spectacular leaves to really bring in that glitz and glamour to it. Soft colored light blue delphinium blossoms. It's another flower that I think is underused. It is more delicate. So when I use more delicate flowers like that, I try to put them in a little bit further, deeper into the corsage.
Hey, Susie, can you go back to that last design? I have a question on how you made your spirals down at the bottom.
What I just did is I cut off a length, whatever the length is, and I would show you completely, but I don't have one with me. Let me just see if I can. I just basically started this little inside here with my needle nose, and I took it and bent it really tight. So I got that tight little spiral. And then once I got that started, I just literally took my fingers, held it together, and tighten it up. And then once you put it in, you go ahead and adjust it however you want it. Keep in mind, this is metal. And remember how we inserted the metal? We created that little loop on the end to have that little. You have to do the same thing with this when inserting. Now, I'll be honest with you. I did a little test because a lot of people come up with the question, can I use U-glue when I'm making these corsages? And certainly there is a great use for the U-glue dashes and strips in corsage and bouquet work. But I always say floral glue is meant to be permanent. It is a permanent bond, so nothing is coming off unless you want it to come off. So I did a little experiment here, and this happens to be attached with one of those little glue dashes, and it's staying on pretty well. But you know what? I can take that right off. And it's going to fall, and it's going to hang. And that came off pretty darn easy. If that gets caught on her dress or her purse or something, that's going to rip off. This one is glued on, and I can't get it off. It's not coming off. So if that gets snagged on something, it's not. The only thing that's going to happen probably is the spiral's going to open up, and that's not a bad look. So choose your applications on which you use the dashes. They're great, and I love them, and I use them. But it's all about mechanics, and we know these corsages, they go through a lot on prom night. They're getting, they're dancing, they're getting thrown in the back of the car. Who knows what's happening? But watch mechanics. So use the glue. Do the same thing. You can add any kind of little spiral with the aluminum wire or the flat wires, as long as you're giving yourself enough gluing platform to insert it into your corsage.
Well, let me make a statement, and then we've got two more questions about that corsage, so hold on to that one close. Just from a company perspective about U-glue, probably the most important thing we would say to you is the answers we're giving you are somewhat general because we don't have a lot of experience using U-glue. When it comes to the Smithers floral adhesive, we have used it, all of us, for many, many years, and we have just a tremendous confidence in that product. But when it comes to the U-glue, then because we use the floral adhesive so much, we don't always think about trying out and doing a lot of testing with the U-glue. So we understand conceptually and even have tested a few little things, but not anywhere near to the extent of the that we've done with the floral adhesive. So if you're hoping for a recommendation, we don't have enough information to be able to give you a recommendation on that. And I don't know if that helps with some of the folks who are asking the questions about the U-glue. But there are two more questions about the corsage there with the spirals on it. The first one is, how are the spirals attached into the corsage themselves. And then the second one is a question that has come up in other webinars. Because of the uniqueness of that, the size of that, and really wanting it to stand out as a signature corsage, do you have any ideas or suggestions on how it might be packaged?
Okay, well, the first question is, how do these get attached in? It's the same way I attached in all the other wire pieces. So, like I said, I don't have a piece of the aluminum wire here, but let's pretend this is the aluminum wire. So I went ahead and I created my loop on the end, which obviously is much easier to make with the aluminum wire. Make your loop, or even make a little spiral on the end. Attach your glue, and then it's inserted right into the corsage. So each of these are individual insertions. They're not all one piece. This was a curlicue that I did this to the end of it and inserted it in. This is an individual insertion. This is an individual. There was 5 of them because I had 5 gems in my Cara Kiss package. So that's why I made the 5 curlicues. So it's the same we inserted a leaf, or we inserted one of our accents, was just make that little curlicue on the end that allows you to glue, and then go ahead and insert that into your corsage base. As far as how to package it, that gets a little bit, there's a lot of answers to that, and try to not to take up too much time, but to give you your answer. It's obviously going to be a little bit harder to fit into a standard size corsage box. If you're just starting out doing your signature corsages, obviously you don't want to invest a great deal into a custom size box. But eventually, if that's what you're going to do, look for a box that you can use other ways in your business at other times, but that would fit, and go ahead and just adjust the size of the box. But if you can't do that, you can go out and maybe buy some of the white gift boxes that you can buy, and only use half of it so that you can actually get 2 out of 1 box, and line it with either some nice tissue paper or paper shred or whatever your choice of lining in a pretty color, maybe something that matches your store logo, and then place that inside the box and just set it in there, and then wrap it over with cellophane, making sure that there's something, whether it's a sticker or a tag or something that identifies your shop. You want to make sure you're branding yourself. And when you create these, it's even more important that when they walk into the house with that box, the package looks beautiful, and that they're seeing, where did that package come from? It came from Susie's Flower Shop. So it's really, you're going to have to kind of play with it and what your budget is. If you can do custom boxes, I would recommend just ordering a box that's a little bit larger and just having them available, and then you can use them maybe for giftware and other areas of your business as well. But until you get to that point where you want to make that investment, you can just either put down even a flat piece of foam core or cardboard or something, hard paper stock, and then wrap it in the cellophane, put a nice little pretty ribbon on it, maybe something that coordinates in a color of the, it can even be that balloon ribbon, as long as it's a pretty color. You just need to make sure that you're branding a signature corsage and presenting it in such a way that it stands worthy to hold such a beautiful work of art. So you don't want to just shove it in a box and close it up. You want to show it off if you can. So I hope that helps. Any other questions, Dan? I've got 2 more corsages. Well, actually 1.5, because we started to show this one. And we were talking about the delicate flowers. And like I said, I usually insert them a little bit farther deeper inside so that they're more protected by the ribbons or the accessories. But they will hold up nicely, again, as long as they're fresh when they come in. They go through the whole chain of life, and you've hardened them off in your cooler, and you use an anti-transparent of your choice, following the directions. That's really important. If you're going to buy something, make sure you read the directions on how to use it, because if you're not using preservatives or anti-transparents properly, you're not getting the use out of them, and so you're just wasting your money, throwing it down the drain. So make sure you follow the instructions. But this is, it's a larger corsage. It can be made more petite for somebody who's a little bit smaller, but when you're adding all these accessories, it's because they want to show off. They want to stand out. So why not have fun and just let it go and just get a little bit wild and have some size to it. It's okay. If it's beautiful, they won't care that it's big. Trust me, as long as it's beautiful. And lastly, we have our Zoe bracelet. This is a fun bracelet because, one thing we really try to teach is that our bracelets are keepsakes. Yes, they're functional and they're practical because they provide a base for you to build beautiful corsages on, but they are a keepsake item. And if you're not mentioning that in your sales process, they like to keep their corsages. They can remove the corsage on the disc clip and keep that, but then they have a beautiful bracelet that they can wear forever and ever and remember their prom night. So don't underestimate the keepsake. And this one is great. This, I think, is probably right on trend with what the girls are wearing. It's a cuff. It's kind of got these bolts on the side. So it's a little edgier, but edgy can also be cool and pretty. And we've done more of a brooch bling corsage than we did on the flowers. And you're saying, but Susie, we're florists. We're supposed to use flowers. Yes, we are. And I have added some floral details to this, but it's about the design. We're also designers. We're artists. And we have to be able to have fun and creative and show off that side of us too. That's what sets us apart from the typical floral arrangers, is that we're able to create these things using flowers and accessories and learning how to combine them both. And this is a great way. These are just a few phalaenopsis petals. And you would say, but those are so delicate. I can't cut those off. But if you've ever gotten those phalaenopsis that had a blemish on one of the petals, and so now you can't use it because it's got a blemish. I can't, it's not going to be good. Well, this is a way to use some of those products, is by using the petals that are good. As long as you make a slight cut along the petal and you use the glue to seal that petal, it's going to be fine. It's not going to bruise any further into the corsage or into the petal itself, except for where you make that slight cut. And so you're actually able to use the phalaenopsis to make composite flowers. And that's just what I did here. I made a kind of a slight composite flowers by using just 4 of the remaining petals and then added of the beautiful, I think that's Starbright. I'm not sure. Dan will correct me if I'm wrong. It's a beautiful, one of our beautiful brooches. And then some lacy leaves and some of our quintet rhinestones and some of our acrylic chain. To really make...
You're right, that's Starbright.
It is Starbright. Thank you, Dan. Just, it's a totally different look than something that's, more floral. But it certainly has its place for prom, and something that you should be showing, I think, in your prom displays, and getting the girls to be familiar with that you are able to create their dream come true. Because you know what? Then they're going to come back to you when it's their big day, their wedding day, that you can also help them create their next big dream. So we want to start showing them now. That's really all I have as far as corsages. So if there's any other questions, now would be a good time. And if you think of something later down the road, you can always email us at the webinars at Creations by Fitz Design. Send us your questions. We're here to help you. It's not just about being here today. It's about longevity, and we're committed to helping you build your prom business and your everyday business. So if you have questions, let us know. We're here to help you. That's all I have. I look forward to seeing you on some future webinars. We are actually planning a really cool one for next week on Tuesday. It's going to be in the evening, and we're going to do a product review of some of our new product line that's coming in. We weren't going to do one next week, but we decided to go ahead and do this because we're just really excited about some of our new products and we want to share them with you. So if you're able to attend that, watch for the invitation to be posted on our Facebook page very soon, probably tomorrow, actually. I think we'll be up and ready to go tomorrow. So join in on that. And until next time, I'm going to sign off and turn it over to Dan Fisher.
Okay, so this one is, the webinar we're going to do today is about increasing the sale. So we're going to talk about marketing strategies about increasing the sale. The first thing Susie told you a little bit about, we have a couple of surprise webinars coming up. One of them is going to be showing you the items that we're considering for the summer and fall of 2015. Some really creative items in wedding event, party, and even some school spirit especially those in Texas, some Texas homecoming things. And so Susie has that scheduled for next Tuesday. It won't be as long. I think it's only scheduled for an hour to an hour and a half. We really won't be doing a marketing segment unless there's something you'd like to see, then send us a note about it. But the second one that we're considering, that we're putting together, is a marketing only seminar. We get lots and lots of comments about the marketing strategies. And so we're going to look at putting one together that covers the majority of the strategies all in one place, instead of week by week giving you the bite-sized pieces. So look for a couple of surprise webinars to be coming up. Again, this is a review of what I've said in each of the others. My job is to challenge you, and that's really what we need to do. And if that causes you to be uncomfortable, then that means I'm probably doing my job. Because if you're just doing the same thing over and over, then you're not going to see any different results than you have in the past. So my job is to challenge you. The next is to be prepared. Do your homework. Know your material to the same extent you're seeing that Susie and I know ours. And then it's prom time. When you go to this effort, you go to this energy, have fun with what you're doing and have a good time with it. My definition of marketing, just quickly, because I've repeated it on some others, is things that can be measured, things that you can look at that you've done, and you can see that they're actually being measured, and you can count what the results are. So let's talk, excuse me, a little bit about increasing the sales. First thing to understand is it's about the girl, and that's all. Not the boy, not the mom, no one else. If you spend your time putting together your marketing strategies that are only focused on the girl, you will get the lion's share of what the increase is. How important of a day this is to her to understand that this is a big dream day. It's something she's thought about for years and years and years. She takes the time to get her hair done, to pick out that special dress, to go get her nails done, just the perfect shoes, the perfect purse, all of those things to come together. Something that she's planned for a long, long time. And that's really what you want to make sure that it's working and you've got going for you. If you'll hold on 1 second, I have a little technical thing I need to work on here. Sorry, I turned myself off and forgot to turn myself back on. As I said, we're having some technical challenges today. Last week, everything went fine, but today it isn't going the same way. Okay, so let's go back here. It is about the girl. If you focus on that, you're going to make sure that you've got the lion's share of things covered. In preparation, what you want to do is, back to the Fitz rule about knowing your stuff and being prepared, make sure you're going to the dress stores. Look at the styles, the textures, the colors, the materials, and get a real understanding of the prices. At the same time, make sure you go to the tux stores and see what's different there. One of the things that each year we hear becoming more and more popular is white tuxes. So be prepared to ask that question. Is he wearing a white tux? And that you've got things to be able to design for that. But spend the time looking in those stores in your area about what are the styles that the kids are seeing that they're going to come in and talk to you about. Again, styles, textures, colors. 2 new colors for this year. One is called hot coral, and the other one is a watermelon. So 2 new colors that if someone comes in and these are new colors this year and tell you they have a hot coral dress, you want to make sure that you know what that shade is so you can make sure that you're designing for them. Ask the prom stores, are they having prom shows, fashion shows, and can you participate? We're going to cover that a little bit more. Go to the teen jewelry stores, Claire's and Icings and places like that, and make sure you've got a feel of what the current teen jewelry is so you can pick out the Fitz items that are lining up with what the kids are seeing as teen jewelry in their area. Spend some time visiting Facebook pages and Pinterest. Put in Fitz Design in Pinterest, for example. You'll get a ton of images to take a look at. But look around, get a feel for what it is that they're looking for. Here's one that we have talked about in the past, but I'll talk about it again in a little bit more detail. And that's to have the prom magazines in your store. This is the current teen prom. This is the one that we recommend. We recommend this over all of the others because they have photo shoots that include the girls wearing flowers. So this magazine understands that flowers are an important part of prom. And so have this in here. But here's a way that this session is about increasing your sales. So, excuse me, here's a way to increase your sales. When the girl comes in and you're having a dialogue with her, with this magazine, you want to do 2 things. First, you want to ask her the color of her dress. And if the boy comes in, same thing, ask the girl the color of the dress. Here's a coral that's pretty close to this year's hot coral. But you want to make sure that you know what color you're designing for, and you all know the challenges and the nightmares that saved. The other is to personalize your corsages to the dress, and that you make this type of a general rule. When the girl shows you her dress, one of the things she's done is really told you what her budget is. So a way to increase your sales is to understand that they do have money based when they show you how fancy the dress is, and create a corsage that's going to come up to start in the area of 15% of the price of the dress. So if you go back to the one that Susie showed you with the Starbright in it, fancy, definitely more expensive. That's the type of corsage that can go with the girl who walks in and shows you this dress. But customizing your corsages so that you've got more and more individual components of exactly what's in the dress is going to allow you to increase your sales. So look at adopting this 15% rule when they show you the dress. Here is visually a quick and easy way to understand the importance of color. On the right is how guys see color: red, purple, pink, orange, yellow, green, and blue. And then, as we all know, how the difference in the women see flower or see the colors. And when a girl comes in and says to you, I have a tangerine or a cantaloupe dress, versus him just saying it's an orange one. Or this year, if she's got a coral dress and he comes in and says to you it's orange, yeah, it's close to being in the orange family, but you wouldn't want to make a bright orange corsage to go with that coral dress. Signature corsages, we've talked about this, but now let's take it to the next step. We suggest that you make a few of these like Susie has shown you that are very, very, very expensive. And then give them names. Put these on your corsage board and give them unique names similar to some of these. The rocker girl, the vintage girl, as Susie said, the Katy Perry, the Beyonce, the Miley, or something that gives it a very unique name that brands it. And when the girl comes in and shows you her very elaborate, high-style dress, it's very easy to say to her, let me show you what I've got for you. I have the vintage sweetheart that is perfect for you. It's in your price point. It's in your style. It's in your look. So as you're looking at these signature corsages, put them into your display and don't be afraid to give them names. I ask this question often, and unless Julie Poltler's in the screen, she doesn't. She's the only one who really knows this question. But the question I ask is, where is Earlville, Iowa? It's a population of people of 820. This signature corsage naming concept works in Earlville, Iowa, and the first florist to actually tell us the details about it was from this little tiny flower shop. And here are some of the names that she was using: the girl next door, the overachiever. The overachiever was actually one that came down over the hand, the diva, the prom queen. But she took the time to create names, special names for these, and that they are elaborate, fancy signature corsages. So at the beginning, Susie showed you much more intricate, expensive corsages, and now we want to try and give you some tips on how you might sell those. And you're not going to sell a lot, but you are going to sell a few. Every town has the doctor's daughters, the lawyer's daughters, the entrepreneur's daughters, the banker's daughters, the daughter of the guy who won the lotto. There are a few people in town who are looking for really expensive, and you want to make sure that you capture those sales too. At the same time, look at doing signature boutonnieres. Creative, fancy, designed boutonnieres. Excuse me. One thing we talk about often, or when I do this presentation, is to say, look at the one in the middle, and what is a price that you might charge for that one in the middle? The answer that comes back most often is between $25 and $29. However, the cost of it is only about $10. The buckle there is $10. The rest of the flowers and the hypericum are probably scraps on your design table that we're getting ready to throw away. There's also a magnet on the back of it. So your actual material cost is not very high, but the look is one that you know that you can charge extra for. Prom fashion shows. This is a great way to increase your sales. Now, there's two ways to increase your sales. You can increase your sales by selling the same number of corsages, boutonnieres, and fashion accessories as you has the year before. Just charge more for them or sell more components, or sell more pieces, sell more students, sell more schools, more families. So here's something that happens in the majority of schools across the country. There are prom fashion shows. They're put on by the dress and tuxedo companies, and these are often easy for you to become a part of. You can become a part of these by going to these prom dress stores and saying to them, asking them, are you doing one of these fashion shows, and can we provide the corsages for the girls to wear? I've never heard of a time that somebody went to the prom dress store and offered this that it wasn't taken advantage of. At the same time, then you want to ask that you can come to the school when they do the fashion show, or if they're not doing it at the school, somewhere else, and that you can set up a table that shows the different styles of things that you do. This is not a place to sell. The dress store is not selling. The tuxedo store is not selling. This is an educational event to show opportunities. Now, you may want to give out a lot of cards. You may want to make appointments, but this isn't about writing orders. This is making sure that they understand the length and breadth and the quality of work that you will do. There's only ever going to be one florist invited most of the time, and if that's you, you've got that opportunity that nobody else in your community has gotten. Prom fashion shows are a great way to increase your sales. And here's an example. This was an Ohio shop, went to a prom fashion show, and here's what their results were. Their average sale went from $22 to $29. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. That's a 30% increase. And as you wrote down your goals, there's not a whole lot of people that said they wanted to put down a 30% increase. From a school that he knew that he was the predominant go-to shop, he actually ended up getting more than 100 more orders from that same school. One of the real strong dynamics was this was a shop where the boys came in on a regular basis, but 85% of those orders came from the girl because the girls had seen what they liked. Many of them came in with the payment materials to be able to charge the boy, but the girl was able to come and she had seen what she liked and came in and actually placed the order. Only 3 of those corsages were not on Fitz bracelets. And in this particular one, $3,950 increase with a minimal investment. One of the important things is to make sure that each one of the girls in each of the dresses in the fashion show has a different style and a different look. Often the dress store can show you the dresses that are going to be used in the fashion show, take pictures of them, go back to your store, and then design specifically for those dresses. This is a tremendous way to help grow your sales. Excuse me. Here are some things that we ran through quickly before, but let me go through them again in a little more detail. Have the youngest girl in your store be your designated prom salesperson. They speak the same language. They have the same giddiness to each other. They have the same enthusiasm about prom. And as I said in the very first one, if I'm the youngest person in your store, go get somebody else. Make sure your staff is trained. The better they're trained, the more likely the higher the sale is. And you know that about Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, casket saddles. The better the training your team has, the higher the sale becomes. Make sure everything is priced and easy for them to understand. Let them be involved in how they're creating it. Set up the bling buffet and let them select the components that they want in the bling buffet. Most often you'll find that they're going to pick out more things than you're going to pick out. Get them involved in the process so that they understand how it's going together. The more comfortable they are with you, the more comfortable they are with what they're ordering, then the more comfortable they are going to be spending a little bit more money. Show them that you're interested. This is a really super important day to them. For almost every girl, this is the first big day in her life. So make sure that you're connected to it, that this is really a big deal. Don't be afraid to start with high prices and work your way down. You all know it's a whole lot easier going down than it is trying to increase the sale. Let them be as creative and expressive as they want to be, just as the corsage in this picture is. It's about them. Back to the beginning slide, it's about the girl. Let her be as fancy or as conservative as she wants to be. And just like you do for brides and other people, making their dream come true is what allows you to grow that customer and pick up a customer for the future. Have a lot of ribbons out. Everybody likes ribbons. Let them incorporate multiple ribbons into their design, and you'll see that your sales will go up. Get some of the unique foliages. Have them in your cooler or have them in permanents to be able to show them, here are some things that we can put into your corsage that not everybody else is going to have. These are the things that I've just got a few of that you're going to make yours even more unique and more creative. Realize that peer pressure can work in your favor. If a girl picks out something that's similar to somebody else, there's nothing wrong with saying, we've already sold that look. Or the other girls are going with Peer pressure works on us. It works on lots of other people. Don't be afraid to use that if you want to put that into one of your tools. Raise your prices. If your goal is to sell the same number of corsages that you did last year and still generate more sales, look at your labor costs. Look at your product cost, because you're probably not buying those things for the same thing you did last year. Don't be afraid to raise your prices. Many people like to use the 3 price point method of showing the budget, the medium, and the expensive. And when you do that, don't have them equally priced in equal intervals. Don't make it 15, 20, and 25. Make it more like 15, 25, 35. Make the space bigger between the bottom one and the middle one, because most of the time when you give them three choices of budget, medium, and expensive, most of the time they're going to pick the middle one. And if you know they're going to pick the middle one, then make your middle ones have a higher margin to them than just adding a smaller incremental difference to them. Have at least $100 corsage in your store. Those are your signature corsages. Have something that they can see. A florist from Michigan told me that she made up 3 $69 corsages and she put out, and they were part of her good, better, best, and those were her best. And she was pretty much convinced that there was no way that she was going to sell them. And so she had to come up to me with kind of a grin on her face and say, you know, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but here's what I did. I'm in a very depressed area of Michigan. I made 3 $69 corsages, and I sold them all. And I even had somebody who wanted to upgrade it even farther, and I sold a $100 corsage. So you're not trying to convert everybody to that, but if you pick up a couple of them, then you're going to be able to increase your sales. Design boutonnieres. Make it creative, make it unique, and be able to charge for it. People like to use incentives, especially to promote their boutonniere orders. Look at doing that as a way of helping to increase your sales. You know, on this last comment on here about is having fun, people don't mind spending money with people that they're enjoying doing business with. But if you're kind of crusty and cranky, they're not likely to want to give you any extra business. They'll get what they need and go ahead and leave. If you've got some high energy and you're involved in this, the fact that you're involved and you're having fun with them is likely to help you increase your sales. A couple of things. Make sure you know your cost of goods. Make sure you know your flour cost, your hard goods cost, your packaging costs. During the webinar, there was a question asked about how much do you charge for the glue. I answered it privately, but here's kind of a quick formula. On average, we're told that you can get about 10 corsages out of a tube of glue. So if that's the number that you want to use, do your markup on the tube of glue, divide it by the number of corsages you think you're going to get, and if 10 is your number, and then be sure to add that in as one of your costs. So be sure to do that. Then we've talked about this before. It's really important that when they come in, just plan, put into your goal that you're going to sell 3 things. You're going to sell a corsage, you're going to sell a boutonniere, and you're going to sell that 3rd floral item. Be able to say to them exactly what they're looking for. They've spent 6 months finding the exact right dress, that they're hoping that when they walk into the room, all the heads turn because she's got the perfect dress. Adding a 3rd floral item and telling her a 3rd item is going to distinguish you and make you different than everybody else. Everybody's going to have a corsage as a fashion accessory. Everybody's going to have a boutonniere. But if you come in with a drop-dead gorgeous necklace or a hairpiece or a belt or something on your shoes, something that is creative and different than everybody else, it's going to do the same thing you're hoping your dress does. Create that awe, that ooh, when she walks in the door, that all the heads turn and take a look at her. Make it a part of your goal that you're going to sell 3 things. If you don't sell it to all of them, that's okay. If you do sell it to a bunch of them, you've helped to increase your sales. Make sure everything is priced. That's a big deal. One way to help increase your sales, sell the bracelet first. And when they're picking out bracelets, have them try it on. When they've tried it on, they take ownership of it. Think about your times going to a jewelry store. they're trying to get you to try it on. When you go and test drive a new car, they want you to test drive it so that you begin to get some ownership of it. Do the same thing. Give them the bracelet and have them try it on so that they get comfortable with it. Then begin to add your accessories, your ribbons, your bling, and lastly, add on your flowers to it. I can't stress enough the importance of having your team trained. We've talked about the 15% of the price of the dress. Personalize it. It is about each individual girl and each individual dress. If you did a survey, I think you're not going to find very many girls who really want 5 spray roses and a bow. What they want is something that is special and super for them. One way you can help increase the perceived value of your corsage is by adding motion, by adding unique textures, by adding dangles to it, adding unique components that they're not going to see anywhere else that helps make it even more important. Another way to be able to increase your sale is to make sure that they understand that they're buying a keepsake. They're not buying something that is disposable. They're buying something that they're going to keep for a long time. And keepsakes are always more expensive than just a more disposable type item. You can go to the store and buy a T-shirt, or you can go to the souvenir stand and buy an imprinted T-shirt, and you're going to pay considerably more because it's a keepsake and it's had more done to it. So make sure that you're selling keepsakes all. It's prom night. Here's some things to just help yourself. One thing we talk about is do not call the girl on the phone and tell her that her corsage is ready. Instead, set up an area where you can take a picture of that corsage that has the name of your flower shop in that picture. Text message it to the girl. Then what she's going to do is, in a matter of seconds, she's going to text it to her best girlfriends. And a minute later, it's going to be on her Facebook page with your name of your store, and you just got a ton of free advertising to help promote the types of corsages that you're doing. You're likely to see increased sales because people see the kind of work you do and come in and take a look at it. Get them back in your store. It's not just about increasing sales for prom. It's about increasing sales throughout the entire year. But have the kids take pictures. Take those pictures and put them on their Facebook pages. Set up an area for them to bring their pictures back into the store and you to create a bulletin board for people to see the kind of look that you do. You can take pictures of a number of different looks and styles that you've done and make sure to put those up on Facebook pages so they can see the different looks that you're doing. If you're not confident that they're posting it on Facebook, post them yourself. Here's the kinds of things that we do. When we do the technology webinar, you'll see some more tips and tricks about this. And then make sure you send things like handwritten thank you cards. Here's a number of ideas, and all of these we've shared with you, but here are testimonials from florists who have done the things that we suggest to you, and they've had great success with it. One lady here has worked out with the school that she's the school's official florist. So any event or anything that's going on with the school, she's getting called for that. Here's somebody talking about the fashion show, showing interest, again, connecting with the girl. Use model students. A number of people like to gather a number of corsages and give them to schoolgirls to wear during school and say, and people be excited that they've got corsages on. And where did you get that? Well, I got that from Susie's Flower Shop. Have the bling buffet. We've talked about that. You get lots and lots of success out of the bling buffet. Make sure you're offering things that are unique and different so that it's not the same as every other flower shop. When people find out that you've got creative and you've got unique and you've got different, they're going to come to you for exactly because of the next reason. Girls don't want to see another girl show up at the prom with the same dress. They also don't want to see another girl show up at the prom with the same corsage. One last thing here, make the experience special. There's a shop that has shared with us that when the girls come in to try on their corsages, they take them out to them on a silver tray. Handwritten thank you cards. I like to ask these questions. When is the last time you received a handwritten thank you card? And then next, when is the last time you sent a handwritten thank you card to a 16-year-old girl? You know the impression that handwritten thank you card has made on you. Just think of that same impression that handwritten thank you card is going to make on that teenage girl, that her sale made a difference, was important enough for you to stop and make a handwritten thank you card. Do not do like somebody did to me, where they copied and pasted something and stapled it into a thank you card and sent it to me. Handwritten thank you cards make a difference. Then this third one is one that everybody likes. If the boy does come in and you're talking to him, say to the young man, here, let me help you make an impression. So here's some quick questions. How much does a single red rose sell for? How much does a single red rose sell for in a box? How much does a single red rose sell in a box with some of that really, really, really expensive ribbon that you got in the back room? Now, when the boy comes in, one of the things you say to him is, here, let me give you a little coaching. Here's what you want to do. When you go to pick your date up, you're going to go to your date, put her corsage on her. You're going to kiss her on the cheek, because I'm watching. Then you're going to turn around to the mother and say, and this one is for you. We hear stories over and over and over again about how this makes such a tremendous impression on the mother, the father, and it certainly makes an impression on the girl that you paid attention to her mother. Okay, that is it for me. What questions do we have today?
So far, I have no questions, Dan.
Okay. Thank you very much. Keep an eye on your email. Look for the surprise webinar about the new products for next week. The Prom series that we've been doing, we're going to take 2 weeks off for Valentine's Day. When we come back on the 17th of February after Valentine's Day, there will actually be 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and they are not the same topic. They are not the same webinar. So there'll be 2 different hands-on design sessions and 2 different marketing sessions. And as you know, every one of these is posted onto Facebook tomorrow after all the things have been done technically that need to be done. So all of them get posted onto Facebook. And thank you very much for going back and watching them. The number of people watching them are into the hundreds, and we know that what we're doing is very good. We can't do this without you, so thank you very much. Everybody have a great afternoon.